Joining me this morning at 1045theteam.com is the editor-in-chief of Baseball America. Baseball America, the foremost authority on everything baseball, from draft to prospect analysis to organizational rankings. You can follow him on Twitter at John Manuel BA. John, thanks for being with us. How are you?
Hey, thanks for calling this morning, and thanks for your patience.
Hey, absolutely. So, John, we talked to Garrett Whitley earlier this week, and he's someone that is really blown up in the prospect circuit since last summer. He's a projected first-round pick in the MLB draft. I want to ask you this first. Everywhere I've seen, he's been a consensus first-round pick. What is it about his skill set that puts him in the first-round range as a whole?
I think the main thing is a combination of physicality, present above average, if not, I guess the scouting term that everyone likes to use is plus. It gets thrown around a little too often, but he definitely has speed. You know, he runs well above the major league average. And then there's a belief in his bat. That's the, you can do all the other tools. People talk about tools. You can run, throw, all those things. You only get drafted in the first round if people believe in your bat. So scouts think he can hit, and that's the $64 million question. It used to be $64,000. I guess I should say it's the $4 million question. So if you believe that Garrett Whitley can hit, you're going to jump up high in the first round and take him because he has the other physical abilities, and you're betting on the bat, and that's how you make an impact in the major leagues, is that you hit. I was just reading about Dustin Ackley in Seattle. Dustin Ackley I saw for 3 years here at the University of North Carolina. We're based in Durham. And Dustin Ackley hit .420 in 3 years of college baseball. Went to the College World Series every year. Set the hits record in the College World Series in 3 years, breaking the record set in 4 years by Sam Foles, who's in the big leagues. And Dustin Ackley's failing in the major leagues. He can't hit. So it's very hard to project on the bat. It's very hard to figure out who can hit and who can't, and that's what scouts are trying to evaluate with Garrett Whitley.
I'm a Mariners fan, so that Dustin Ackley analysis is really painful to hear.
I hate it because I love Dusty as a player. He was a great player to cover, and it hurts to read because also I thought for sure if anyone could hit, it'd be that guy. So I'm just trying to use him as a great example. He was a second overall pick in the draft. He got $6 million. It is hard to know who's going to hit and who isn't. So, Garrett Whitley, and we're not going to know because you're trying to say what's Garrett Whitley going to look like physically in 5 years. But that's why Dave Stewart's been in to see him, because this is a very unsettled draft class. Dave Stewart is the general manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have the first overall pick, and Dave Stewart, who's a 4-time 20-game winner in the big leagues, thinks that he knows what a hitter looks like, and he's coming to see him. And I'm sure that Derek Ladnier, the scouting director of the Diamondbacks, has been in there. And it's very difficult to evaluate an 18-year-old kid in Albany, New York, facing the kind of how many pitchers that he's faced in his high school career do you think will pitch in the major leagues? The likely answer is 0. So you're trying to evaluate Garrett Whitley's ability to hit against pitchers throwing in the 70s, in the 80s. And when you watch the big boys on TV or in Yankee Stadium, they're not throwing in the 70s and 80s unless they really want to. That's their off speed. They're throwing in the mid-90s. So to evaluate Garrett Whitley, the high school kid in the Albany, New York area, against that caliber of pitching, and projecting how he'll do against big league arms. Whew, what a job. Good luck. It's much easier to write about it and pontificate about it and pretend to be an expert like we do at Baseball America, where we do try our best to know as much as we can on these subjects, but then to actually put that dollar sign on the muscle and commit with conviction to give Garrett Whitley seven-figure bonus to come try to play Major League Baseball for you. What a difficult job. I just don't envy the scouts and the evaluators who have to evaluate him. But all our reports are that he has all the physical ability necessary and that people do believe in the makeup, good kid. All our reports about him are pretty positive, but there's a wide range in where he could go in the draft. He could go first, he could go 21st, and that's because how difficult it is to evaluate that bat.
It was cool to see, John, about 3 weeks ago, Niskayuna played Shenendehowa. Shenendehowa has a pitcher named Ian Anderson who's topping out at 93 right now, who's a junior who you guys might be writing about next year. He's already committed to Vanderbilt. So that was the first chance that I had in person to see Garrett Whitley go against a pitcher of that potential caliber. I wanted to ask
How'd he do?
He went 0 for 2, but he showed. Now, I was a former college baseball player, junior college baseball coach, so I certainly don't know what Major League Scouts know, but I know what to look for, at least in a baseball player. He turned around a 91-mile-an-hour fastball in the first pitch of the game. He grounded it hard to third. So he showed the bat speed to get around on a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and he showed for a guy who's not used to getting pitched to, he swung at strikes when they came.
Those are two great indicators that he made hard contact, and like you said, he didn't expand. And that's a great test. I mean, obviously there have been times when people have seen him against that kind of velocity. That's what the showcase and travel ball circuit's really about, so that scouts don't only get to see him against the high school competition in his area and hope, oh, we're lucky he gets to face a Vanderbilt signee, this year. So that's the whole point of travel ball, to measure the best against the best. I know right now travel ball kind of has a lot of negative connotations out there, but I think it's easy to lose sight of the positives, and it does give the players a chance to measure themselves against other elite talent, and it gives the scouts a chance. So, like I said, his draft stock is just so volatile. There was a game last week where I guess he went 0 for 4, and I had reports from several scouts who were at the game that just didn't go. He didn't have a great game, but he also ran from home to first in 3.8 seconds on a ground ball from the right side. I mean, that is Mike Trout level speed. So, the reports have been, of late, are more mixed, and that's because I think there's more scrutiny on Garrett Whitley right now.
John Manuel, Baseball America, at John Manuel BA on Twitter. We'll get you out of here on this. I want to ask you, now, Baseball Prospectus, another site, had him as the number 1 overall pick to Arizona, but I also have read some things that said that is there a chance Arizona would take him number 1 overall because they think he's good, but they also think that they can get him for cheaper than that almost $8 million slot bonus, so they basically they think they could lowball Garrett Whitley with the number 1 pick and then save some of that money to sign some guys later in the draft. Is that something that happens? Is that something that's possible?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time in this new draft system. Very rarely does a player get the full slot allotment at where he's drafted. So it's assigned pick values in baseball system, but the main thing is that every team gets a cap. Here's your bonus pool. Now spend it however you want. That's Major League baseball rules. Each pick comes with an allotment. That's how you get to your pool. But there's no rule that says you get drafted first, you get this full $8 million plus signing bonus. The record for the draft is $8 million to Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was a college pitcher who'd been a first-round pick out of high school, who had been to the College World Series with UCLA. That's a lot easier to bet on than a high school outfielder from upstate New York. So Garrett Whitley's not going to get $8 million. So the key is, if you're Arizona, and I wrote this in my mock draft last week, Arizona is very closely tied for high school players who they might make a deal with Tyler Stevenson, a high school catcher in Georgia, and Garrett Whitley. So they're going to cut a deal. I think that's more likely. Even if they take one of the college pitchers, Dylan Tate or Carson Fulmer, they're not going to give those guys the full $8 million. There's not an $8 million player in this draft. There's no Steven Strasburg. There's no Garrett Cole. There's no Mike Trout. If there is a Mike Trout, who was drafted 25th overall in his draft, by the way, it could be Garrett Whitley. He's the guy who fits that profile, the Northeastern high school outfielder with speed, where you're trying to evaluate the bat. And that's what teams don't want to miss. They don't want to miss the next Trout. I don't think Whitley's Trout, but there's only one Mike Trout. But that's another factor in his favor, that teams don't want to say, we took Dustin Ackley when we could have had Mike Trout.
John Manuel, Baseball America, breaking down the MLB draft, breaking down Garrett Whitley's prospects in the draft. We all just got a little bit smarter having listened to that. John, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for the compliment, and thanks for having me on the show.